Ever feel like you need a communication cheat sheet? Especially for like those make or break moments?
Yeah, totally.
What to say in those first few seconds of a presentation to really hook people in, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Today we are extracting pure gold from Pitch Perfect by Bill McGowan and Alisa Bowman.
This is a good one.
Is a good one, right?
It's a really good one.
So let's dive in.
Yeah, let's dive in. It starts off with this idea of a 30-second rule
Yeah.
for like capturing attention.
Ooh, I like rules. What's this one about?
Okay, so Pitch Perfect highlights all this research about how you have such a short window to like make an impression at the start of any interaction.
Okay.
It's just 30 seconds.
Wow, 30 seconds. Why so short?
Well, think about it. We're constantly bombarded with information.
Yeah.
Our brains are like masters at filtering out anything that doesn't seem immediately relevant.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
So if you don't grab someone in those first 30 seconds, their
Yeah.
mind is going to wander.
It's gone. Okay, so how do we make those 30 seconds really count?
Okay, so they use Steve Jobs' 1984 presentation, introducing the Macintosh.
Oh, yeah.
Is a great example.
Okay.
Everyone expected him to dive right into the technical specs, but instead he walks out on stage and says, "Hi, I'm Steve Jobs."
That's it.
And that's it.
That's brilliant.
It's like he completely defied expectations and created this like moment of surprise,
Yeah.
and bam, he immediately had everyone hooked.
It's true. I mean, it still works, even though we all know what's coming.
I know, right?
It's so simple, but so effective.
Exactly. So that's the takeaway here. Like, ditch the agenda setting and,
Yeah.
the lengthy intros.
Yeah.
Just hit your audience with something compelling
Yeah.
right away. Could be a story, thought-provoking question,
Okay.
a bold statement,
Yeah.
anything unexpected that's going to like pique their interest.
So how do we figure out what that hook should be for our own presentations?
Okay, so there's this idea called the pasta sauce principle.
Pasta sauce principle. Okay, I'm listening.
So it's about boiling your message down to its most potent essence, like when you simmer a pasta sauce for hours
Oh, I see.
to concentrate the flavor.
So we need to be concise, get right to the heart of the matter.
Exactly. And Pitch Perfect highlights that like the typical listener's attention starts to wane after about 18 minutes.
Okay.
18 minutes.
So we got to make those minutes count. Does that mean keeping things short and sweet?
Yeah. The book emphasizes crafting like a strong opener, like we discussed,
Right.
and an impactful closing. So within that like 18-minute window, there's some flexibility there.
Yeah.
But conciseness is key, like writing an important email. You want to get right to the
I
point.
do.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. You get much better responses that way. Like, it's just so much more effective.
Exactly. And Pitch Perfect argues that this is why platforms like Twitter have been so successful. Short, impactful messages.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's like we're all so overwhelmed with information that we just need things to be short and to the point.
Exactly.
Okay, so we got the 30-second rule for grabbing attention, pasta sauce principle for keeping it.
Yeah.
What other gems does Pitch Perfect have for us?
Okay. This one might surprise you. The book argues that speaking quickly often signals anxiety, not confidence.
Really? I always thought like the fast talker would be seen as more passionate, more knowledgeable.
Yeah, it seems intuitive, right?
Yeah.
But actually, Pitch Perfect backs this up with research.
Okay.
Speaking too fast makes it harder for your audience to actually process what you're saying.
And I bet it would be harder for you to think clearly if you're speaking a mile a minute.
Exactly. Slowing down allows your brain to catch up. Organize your thoughts.
Okay.
Deliver your message more effectively.
Yeah, you know what? Now that you mention it, I have noticed that. It's almost like those pauses give your words more weight.
Exactly. And, Pitch Perfect even uses Tony Hayward as an example,
Oh, yeah.
the former BP chairman. Do you remember his infamous "I'd like my life back" gaffe after the Gulf oil spill?
Of course.
His rushed words, probably spoken under immense stress, they ultimately damaged his image and fueled the public's anger.
Yeah.
If he had taken a moment to pause,
Yeah.
consider the impact of what he was saying,
Yeah.
things might have played out differently.
It's a powerful reminder. Sometimes slowing down and really choosing your words carefully can have such a huge impact, especially in those high-pressure situations.
Absolutely.
So what else can we do to make sure our messages come across clearly and confidently?
So Pitch Perfect talks about incorporating visual storytelling.
Makes sense. It's so much more engaging than just like facts and figures.
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
And they actually give this example of an economist explaining Brazilian inflation.
Okay.
Instead of just throwing out numbers, she used the image of people carrying sacks of worthless cash to the
Oh, wow. That is so much more powerful than just hearing statistics. It's like you can almost feel it.
Exactly. And the book argues that this technique helps make like complex or abstract ideas more understandable and memorable.
Yeah, totally. I mean, have you ever had someone explain something really complex, but they used a metaphor or a story?
Oh, all the time.
It just clicks.
It makes it click.
It makes it click. Exactly.
Yeah, analogies and metaphors that can be so powerful.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're watching a mini movie in your mind,
Exactly.
which is way more engaging than just like someone lecturing at you.
Totally. So the next time you're struggling to explain something, try using like relatable analogies.
Okay.
Make that information come alive for your audience.
Okay, so we've talked about grabbing attention,
Yeah.
keeping it,
Yep.
and making our messages memorable.
Yeah.
What else does Pitch Perfect cover?
It delves into physical presence.
Okay.
And there's some fascinating research about the power of standing while presenting.
I am all ears.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always looking for ways to boost my confidence when speaking in front of others.
Okay, so Pitch Perfect highlights a study showing that standing while presenting actually reduces stress levels by 25%
Wow.
compared to sitting.
Why is that? Well, it seems that standing encourages better posture, which in turn leads to increased confidence. Think about how your own posture changes when you're feeling confident versus when you're feeling unsure.
It's true. When you feel good, you stand a little taller. So how does that translate to a presentation setting?
The confidence that you're feeling it projects outward to your audience.
Okay.
It makes you appear more credible, more engaging,
Oh.
and ultimately more persuasive. And Pitch Perfect suggests using small, purposeful gestures
Okay.
to further enhance your message without becoming distracting.
So it's not about like being a statue. It's about finding that sweet spot between movement and stillness.
Exactly. And they also stress the importance of dressing appropriately for the occasion. Your clothing should enhance your message, not distract from it.
Okay, so no flashy outfits or loud patterns that might steal the show from your words.
Exactly. They tell this really interesting anecdote about a celebrity chef who used to wear revealing clothing on her cooking show. And she discovered that it actually alienated a large portion of her target audience.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
It really makes you think about how your clothing choices can impact how your message is received.
Definitely. It's all about being mindful of your audience and dressing in a way that supports your communication goals.
Okay, so we've got our power stance. We're dressed for success. What else can we do to really connect with our audience?
Okay, now let's switch gears and talk about the art of active listening, which the book stresses is absolutely crucial for effective communication.
Yeah, active listening. It's a skill I'm always working on. Sometimes I get so focused on what I want to say next that I don't really listen as well as I could.
Yeah, I think we've all been there.
Right.
The book emphasizes that showing genuine interest is the foundation of being a good listener.
Okay, so things like putting down your phone,
Yeah,
making eye contact,
yeah,
really focusing on what the other person is saying.
exactly. And Pitch Perfect also suggests allowing the other person to speak without interruption and avoid like jumping in with your own thoughts before they've finished.
It's about making the other person feel heard and valued.
Yes.
What are some other ways we can show we're truly engaged in a conversation?
The book suggests pausing before responding.
Okay.
It shows that you're taking the time to process what they've said.
Yeah, that makes sense. Think about it. You're at a party. Who are you more drawn to? The person who's constantly talking about themselves, or the one who asks you thoughtful questions and really listens to your answers?
That's such a great analogy. Active listening, it's all about forging that connection,
Yeah.
showing that you truly value the other person's perspective.
So it's not just about the words we speak, but how we listen that really matters.
For sure.
Speaking of navigating conversations, what about those times when the discussion starts to veer off track?
Oh, yeah.
How do we steer things back on course without seeming like rude or dismissive?
Okay, so Pitch Perfect uses this analogy of gently turning the steering wheel of a car.
I like that.
So you don't want to make any sudden movements, right? But you kind of subtly guide the conversation in the direction that you want it to go.
Yeah, so how do we actually do that in a real conversation?
So the key is to find a bridge between the current topic and where you want to go.
Okay.
For example, you could mirror a small piece of information that the other person mentioned and use that to kind of transition back to your main point. Have you ever noticed people doing that skillfully?
Yes. And now that you mention it, it seems so obvious, but it's a subtle art.
Yeah.
For sure.
To provide an example of a business meeting where a coworker's personal issues threaten to derail an important deal. And instead of letting the conversation get completely sidetracked, the main character subtly redirects it back to the business at hand,
Right.
ultimately saving the deal.
It's a great example of how being tactful yet strategic can make all the difference.
For sure.
Okay, this is all great stuff. What else can we learn from Pitch Perfect?
Okay, so the book stresses the importance of being prepared, even for casual conversations.
Okay, so I'm kind of a wing it kind of person.
Oh, yeah.
Do I really need to prepare for every conversation?
Okay, so they use this example of a pro wrestling manager who was fired for an off-the-cuff remark during a live broadcast.
Oh, no.
While it was intended as a joke,
Yeah.
it was insensitive, and it ended up costing him his job.
Ouch.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a tough lesson.
So how can we prepare without overthinking every word we say?
Well, you don't have to script every conversation. Pitch Perfect suggests having a few engaging anecdotes ready to share.
Okay.
Could be stories related to your work, your hobbies, your background, things that you can naturally weave into conversations to connect with others.
So it's like having a mental toolkit of conversation starters.
Exactly. And the book also emphasizes staying informed about current events and industry trends. This allows you to contribute meaningfully to conversations and demonstrate your engagement and knowledge.
So preparation isn't about memorizing lines. It's about equipping yourself to engage thoughtfully in a variety of situations. Okay, what other insights does Pitch Perfect offer?
This one might surprise you. Pitch Perfect advocates for arriving early to speaking engagements.
Really? I would not have thought about that as a key strategy.
It's not just about setting up equipment or avoiding being late, right?
Right.
Pitch Perfect suggests that arriving early can actually ease anxiety and strengthen your connection with the audience.
How so?
Okay, so for starters, it gives you a chance to get comfortable with the space. You can familiarize yourself with the stage, test the microphone, just get a feel for the room.
Yeah.
And that can go a long way in calming your nerves.
Okay.
But here's where it gets interesting. Arriving early allows you to connect with audience members who also arrive early.
Oh.
You can chat with them, get a sense of their interests, maybe even tailor your message slightly based on what you learn.
Okay, yeah, so it's like a mini meet and greet
Exactly.
before the main event.
Yeah,
Which helps you build rapport
exactly.
and establish a connection
Exactly.
with your audience before you even start.
Exactly. And of course, Pitch Perfect reminds us to take a deep breath before speaking.
Oh yeah, of course.
That helps to steady your voice and project confidence.
It's a simple but effective technique
It is.
that we can all use, whether we're giving a presentation
Yeah.
or just having a one-on-one conversation.
For sure. So they use the example of Alexander Haig,
Yeah.
who was the Secretary of State under Reagan.
Okay.
Remember, after the assassination attempt on Reagan,
Yeah.
he rushes to address the press and just blurts out,
Yeah.
"I'm in control here."
Yeah, I remember that. It did not exactly convey calm and steady leadership.
Not at all. His voice was shaky, his body language was tense, and it really undermined his message.
Yeah.
If he'd just taken a moment to breathe,
Yeah.
compose himself,
Yeah.
he would have come across so much more effectively.
It's a powerful reminder that taking a moment to center ourselves can really make all of the difference, especially in those high-pressure situations.
Yeah, for sure.
So far, we've been talking a lot about communication in professional settings.
Right.
Does Pitch Perfect address these techniques for our personal lives as well?
Oh, absolutely. The book emphasizes that effective communication isn't just about boardrooms and presentations.
Right.
It's about navigating all of life's moments with grace and consideration.
So bringing these skills to our personal interactions as well.
Exactly. Applying those same principles of clarity, empathy, and appropriateness
Yeah.
to all of our interactions.
Okay, so what are some specific examples of how these principles translate to our personal lives?
Well, Pitch Perfect really emphasizes the importance of empathy in communication. It's about putting yourself in the other person's shoes, considering their perspective. What would they find valuable? What might they find hurtful?
So it's about being sensitive to the emotional landscape of the situation.
Exactly. For example, Pitch Perfect suggests that if you're giving a wedding toast,
Okay.
you should probably avoid telling embarrassing stories or
Mhm.
making off-color jokes. It's not about getting laughs at the expense of the bride and groom. It's about celebrating them in a way that feels authentic and heartfelt.
It's about reading the room and tailoring your communication to the specific context.
Exactly. The book also talks about the importance of focusing on the positive, especially when discussing someone's limitations.
Oh, okay. Can you give me an example of that?
There's this great story in Pitch Perfect about a woman with Williams syndrome,
Okay.
which is a genetic condition that can impact learning and cognitive abilities.
Okay.
But when people ask her about it, She chooses to focus on the positive aspects of her condition, like her exceptional musical abilities.
I love that. It's about highlighting strengths rather than dwelling on limitations.
Exactly.
It's just such a more empowering and engaging way to communicate.
Absolutely. And this is just a taste of what Pitch Perfect has to offer.
This has been so insightful. It feels like we've just scratched the surface of what Pitch Perfect has to teach us.
We have. There's so much more to explore, from nonverbal cues to navigating difficult conversation.
I can't wait.
But for now, let's pause here and reflect on what we've learned so far.
Great idea. We'll be back soon to dive even deeper into the art of Pitch Perfect communication.
One of the most interesting takeaways for me from Pitch Perfect was the emphasis on nonverbal communication.
Oh yeah, like body language and facial expressions. I've definitely noticed how those things can impact a conversation, even if we're not always aware of it.
Exactly. Pitch Perfect argues that these subtle cues can often speak louder than words. Think about a raised eyebrow conveying skepticism, or a slight lean forward signaling interest.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's like this whole secret language going on beneath the surface of our conversations.
It is a secret language. I like that.
The book encourages us to be more mindful of these nonverbal signals, both in ourselves and in others.
Okay.
So, for example, they talk about the power of mirroring as a technique for building rapport.
Mirroring, you mean like literally copying someone's movements?
Not exactly. It's more about subtly reflecting their body language and tone of voice
Yeah.
to create a sense of connection. Like, if someone is speaking softly and leaning in, you might subconsciously do the same to create that sense of shared understanding.
It's like you're creating this subconscious sense of harmony
That's a great way to put it.
in the interaction.
Yeah. Pitch Perfect also highlights the importance of eye contact. Have you ever noticed how unsettling it can be when someone doesn't make eye contact during a conversation?
Oh, absolutely. It makes you feel like they're not really listening.
Yeah.
Or like they're being dishonest.
Exactly. Pitch Perfect cites research showing that maintaining appropriate eye contact is crucial for conveying confidence, sincerity, and engagement.
Okay, so how much eye contact is considered appropriate? I don't want to be like staring people down and making them uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is a delicate balance. Pitch Perfect suggests aiming for about 60 to 70% eye contact during a conversation.
Okay.
This demonstrates that you're present and attentive without being overly intense. And, of course, it's important to be aware of cultural norms. Because, what's considered appropriate eye contact can vary widely across cultures.
That's true, yeah. I can imagine like direct eye contact in some cultures could be misconstrued.
Totally. And this idea of cultural sensitivity is another key point that Pitch Perfect addresses.
Okay.
They emphasize the importance of tailoring your communication style to your audience.
So it's not just about mastering these like general principles,
Right.
but it's about understanding the specific needs and expectations of the people that you're communicating with.
Exactly. It's like they use the analogy of a chameleon,
Okay.
adapting its colors to blend in with its surroundings. Similarly, we need to be adaptable in our communication, shifting our style to resonate with the people we're interacting with.
So for example, if you're presenting to a group of engineers, you might use more technical language and data-driven arguments. But if you're talking to a group of artists, you might focus more on storytelling and emotional appeals.
Exactly.
It's about speaking the language of your audience.
Yeah, and this adaptability extends beyond just the content of your message.
Okay.
It also applies to your tone, your pace, and even your level of formality.
Mm-hmm.
You probably use a different communication style when you're meeting with a potential investor
Oh, yeah, for sure.
versus catching up with a close friend.
Absolutely. So being adaptable is key. What else does Pitch Perfect say about connecting with your audience?
So they really stress the importance of knowing your stuff.
Meaning you should be knowledgeable about the topic you're discussing.
Yes, but it goes deeper than that.
Hmm.
Pitch Perfect argues that you need to anticipate questions, be prepared to address counter-arguments, and be able to speak with authority on your subject.
Okay.
The better prepared you are, the more confident and persuasive you'll be in your communication.
It's like that saying, chance favors the prepared mind.
Exactly.
The more you know, the more you can confidently engage in a conversation, and you're not like, I don't know, let me Google that real quick.
Right. And another key aspect of preparation, according to Pitch Perfect, is practice.
I have to admit, I sometimes skip the practice part. It feels a bit unnatural, like I'm just reciting lines.
I understand that feeling, but Pitch Perfect makes a compelling case for practicing your delivery. whether it's for a presentation or even a challenging conversation.
Okay.
It helps you smooth out rough edges, fine-tune your timing, and ultimately feel more confident.
So it's not about memorizing a script, it's about internalizing the flow of your message and feeling comfortable expressing it.
Exactly. It's like rehearsing a play or a musical performance. The more you practice, the more natural and effortless your delivery will become.
Yeah.
And this practice can be particularly helpful for those unexpected curveballs that life throws our way.
Oh, absolutely. Those unexpected questions or being put on the spot in situations where you have to think on your feet.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like that happens all the time.
We all experience that.
Yeah.
And Pitch Perfect offers strategies for navigating those tricky situations.
Okay.
One of the most important is to stay calm under pressure.
Yeah. Easier said than done. Like my heart starts racing, my mind goes blank. It's like my body goes into fight or flight mode.
It's a natural response. But Pitch Perfect suggests some helpful techniques for managing stress. One simple yet effective technique is to just take a deep breath.
Okay.
It helps regulate your heart rate, and it provides oxygen to your brain,
Okay.
allowing you to think more clearly.
It's like hitting the pause button on that panic response.
Exactly. And another tip is to pay attention to your body language. Even if you're feeling flustered on the inside, try to project a calm and composed demeanor on the outside.
So things like unclenching your jaw,
Yeah.
relaxing your shoulders,
Yeah.
making eye contact can actually help you feel more confident.
Precisely. It's amazing how much our physical state can influence our mental state.
It's true.
And by projecting confidence, we actually start to feel more confident. And Pitch Perfect also suggests using humor as a way to kind of diffuse tension in those difficult situations.
I love that. A well-placed joke can really lighten the mood and put everyone at ease. Not about being like a stand-up comedian, of course, but using humor to connect with others and navigate challenging conversations with a bit of grace and lightness.
Exactly. Now, thinking about difficult conversations, Pitch Perfect dedicates a whole section to delivering bad news or having those tough conversations that we often dread.
Oh yeah. I'm always a little apprehensive about those. It feels like there's no easy or comfortable way to deliver bad news. So what kind of advice does Pitch Perfect offer for these situations?
The book emphasizes being direct and upfront. No beating around the bush or sugarcoating the message.
Just rip the Band-Aid off?
Kind of, yeah. Pitch Perfect argues that people appreciate honesty and transparency even when the news is difficult to hear.
Okay.
Delaying the inevitable often creates more anxiety and uncertainty.
That's true. That makes sense. But how do you balance that honesty with sensitivity?
That's key. Pitch Perfect suggests acknowledging the other person's feelings and validating their perspective, even if you don't agree with it.
So like, I understand that this is difficult news to hear, and I want you to know that I'm here to support you.
Exactly. It's about finding the balance between delivering the message clearly and doing so with empathy and compassion. Pitch Perfect also highlights the importance of focusing on solutions rather than dwelling on the problem.
So not just dropping the bomb and walking away, but offering a path forward.
Right.
Even if there's not an easy solution,
Right.
brainstorming together can kind of create that sense of hope and agency.
Exactly. And finally, the book stresses the importance of following up after a difficult conversation. It's about making sure that the other person feels heard and supported, even after the initial conversation is over.
It's so important. Just a simple check-in or a follow-up email can go a long way in building trust and strengthening those relationships.
It shows that you genuinely care and that you're committed to maintaining open and honest communication. So those are some of the highlights from Pitch Perfect on navigating difficult conversations. What stands out to you so far?
I'm really struck by how much emphasis Pitch Perfect places on the emotional intelligence aspect of communication. It's not just about the words we say, but about understanding those unspoken dynamics at play and approaching each interaction with empathy and sensitivity.
That's a great observation, and Pitch Perfect has even more to offer in this realm. For example, the book delves into the power of storytelling, which can be an incredibly effective way to connect with others on an emotional level.
Storytelling. Okay, I'm intrigued. What does Pitch Perfect say about how we can use storytelling to enhance our communication?
They argue that stories have this unique ability to capture our attention, evoke emotions, and make information more memorable.
Yeah, I mean, we're naturally drawn to stories, but how can we incorporate storytelling into our everyday communication, whether it's in a presentation or a casual conversation?
That's a great question. And Pitch Perfect offers some specific advice. For starters, they emphasize the importance of finding a relatable hook. You want to start your story with something that will immediately grab your listener's attention and pull them in.
So starting with a question, a surprising statement, or maybe even a personal anecdote.
Exactly. Pitch Perfect also talks about building suspense and creating a narrative arc within your story. It's about taking your listeners on a journey with twists and turns and ultimately leading them to a satisfying resolution.
We're like mini Spielbergs in the making.
Exactly. And the book encourages us to use vivid language and sensory details to paint a picture in the listener's mind. And finally, Pitch Perfect suggests that every good story has a takeaway message or a moral. What is it that you want your audience to learn from your story? What point are you trying to drive home?
So it's not just about entertainment, it's about using storytelling as a vehicle for persuasion, inspiration, or even like a call to action.
Exactly. And sometimes the simplest stories can have the most profound impact. Pitch Perfect shares an example of a speaker who used a personal anecdote about losing his wallet to illustrate the importance of data security. It's a simple story, but it makes the point in a way that's both relatable and memorable.
It's a good reminder that you don't have to be like a novelist to be a good storyteller. Sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that are rooted in our own experiences.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of storytelling. It's a skill we can all develop, and it has the potential to transform our communication in both personal and professional settings.
This is fascinating. We've talked about so much already: nonverbal cues, handling tough conversations, the power of storytelling. Where do we go from here with Pitch Perfect?
Well, there's still so much to unpack. The book also delves into the subtle art of persuasion, exploring how we can use language and psychological principles to make our arguments more compelling.
This sounds like a deep dive within a deep dive. So what kind of persuasive techniques does Pitch Perfect cover?
So it starts with the power of framing.
Okay.
It's about how we present information and the language we use to shape people's perceptions.
Oh, like the classic example of the glass being half full or half empty?
Exactly. It's about strategically choosing words and phrases to evoke a certain feeling or perspective. For example, if you're trying to get someone to invest in your company, you might frame it as an opportunity for them to get in on the ground floor of something big, rather than simply buying shares.
It's the same information, but presented in a way that feels way more exciting and exclusive.
Exactly. Pitch Perfect also discusses the importance of social proof in persuasion. Have you ever noticed how online reviews or testimonials can influence your purchasing decisions?
Oh, all the time. If a product has thousands of 5-star reviews, I'm way more likely to buy it than one with only a few.
That's the power of social proof. We're more likely to do something if we see that others are doing it. And Pitch Perfect suggests that we can leverage this principle in our own communication. If we can demonstrate that others support our ideas or endorse our products, our message becomes much more persuasive.
It's about building credibility and trust through the power of the crowd.
Exactly. And another persuasive technique Pitch Perfect explores is the concept of scarcity.
Scarcity. You mean making something seem more desirable because it's in limited supply?
Exactly. Think about those limited time offers and exclusive deals that marketers use all the time. They create a sense of urgency and tap into our fear of missing out.
I have to admit, those tactics often work on me. Suddenly, I need that item that I didn't even know existed before.
We've all been there. And while these persuasive techniques can be very effective, Pitch Perfect emphasizes the importance of using them ethically and responsibly. It's not about manipulating people, but about communicating our ideas in a way that resonates with others and inspires them to take action.
It's about persuasion, not manipulation.
Exactly. Pitch Perfect is all about empowering us to become more effective communicators, not about teaching us how to trick people. And speaking of empowerment, one of the things that really impressed me about the book is its emphasis on authenticity in communication.
Yeah, especially in today's world where we're constantly bombarded with messages, it feels like authenticity is more important than ever. Like people can spot a fake from a mile away.
Absolutely. But when we communicate from a place of genuine passion, conviction, and vulnerability, we connect with others on a much deeper level.
Yeah.
It's about letting our true self shine through. Ultimately resonates with others more than any carefully crafted persona.
So it's not about trying to be perfect or someone we're not. It's about embracing our unique voices and sharing our perspectives authentically.
Exactly. Pitch Perfect encourages us to share our stories, embrace our imperfections, and speak from the heart. And in that sense, the book is about more than just communication. It's about being a better human.
I love that. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive into Pitch Perfect, what are some of the key insights that have resonated with you?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is this realization that communication is about so much more than just the words we say. It's about understanding the nuances of nonverbal communication, tailoring our approach to our audience, and approaching every interaction with empathy and authenticity.
I completely agree. It's been eye-opening to explore these subtle but powerful elements of communication, and there's still more to uncover.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a whole section in Pitch Perfect on the importance of having a be prepared insurance policy
Oh,
for those unexpected moments,
I like it.
which we'll discuss in our final segment.
This is going to be good. We'll be back soon to wrap up our deep dive into Pitch Perfect.
Welcome back. So as we wrap up our exploration of Pitch Perfect, I want to touch on this concept they call the Be Prepared insurance policy.
Okay, insurance policy, tell me more.
So it emphasizes the importance of being prepared for those unexpected communication challenges, those moments when you have to think on your feet and respond gracefully, even when you're caught off guard.
I know those moments. Unexpected questions in meetings, those challenging conversations with colleagues or loved ones. You're put on the spot and you need to come up with a response quickly. Happens all the time. What advice does Pitch Perfect give us to handle those situations?
So they give a whole bunch of practical tips, but one of the most fundamentals is to simply pause before responding. Just hit that internal pause button. Gather your thoughts and avoid blurting out something you might regret.
I've definitely been there. Said something, I was like, why did I say that? So that pause can be really powerful. It gives you a moment to compose yourself and choose your words carefully.
Exactly. And Pitch Perfect also highlights the importance of active listening in these situations. When you're faced with a challenging question or comment, take a moment to really hear what the other person is saying. Often, simply acknowledging their perspective can really go a long way in diffusing tension and creating a more constructive dialogue.
Yeah, it's about showing respect, even if you don't agree with their point of view. So in addition to pausing and listening, what are some other things we can do?
So the book suggests having a few go-to phrases ready for those moments when you need a little extra time to formulate a response.
Okay.
Something like, that's a great question, let me think about that for a moment.
Okay.
Or, I appreciate you bringing that up, let me make sure I understand your perspective.
Yeah, it gives you a little breathing room without seeming flustered or unprepared. It's like having those trusty tools in your back pocket that you can pull out.
Exactly. And Pitch Perfect also suggests using humor to disarm tense situations, but with a caveat.
Yeah, a well-placed joke can definitely lighten the mood, but it's important to be mindful of the context and your audience.
Exactly. They caution against using humor that could be perceived as insensitive or offensive.
Right.
It's about reading the room and gauging whether humor is appropriate for the situation. When in doubt, err on the side of caution.
So being prepared for those unexpected moments is really about having a combination of strategies. Pausing, actively listening, having those go-to phrases ready, and using humor judiciously.
Absolutely. And remember, the goal isn't to be perfect,
Right.
but to just navigate these challenges with grace and composure.
Good reminder that we're all human and we're all going to make mistakes.
Totally.
It's about learning from those experiences and continually trying to improve.
Exactly. And Pitch Perfect offers a wealth of knowledge and practical advice to support us on that journey. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some of the key insights that you're taking away?
Oh, so many. I'd say the importance of empathy, authenticity, and preparation. Empathy in understanding the other person's perspective, authenticity in being true to ourselves, and preparation in equipping ourselves to handle those unexpected moments with grace and confidence.
Those are fantastic takeaways. They really capture what Pitch Perfect is all about, empowering us to communicate in a way that is both effective and meaningful.
This has been such a valuable experience. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of the power of communication and the tools to connect with others in a more profound way.
I'm so glad to hear that. And remember, communication is a lifelong journey of learning and growth. The more we practice these skills, the more confident and effective we'll become in all aspects of our lives.
Pitch Perfect has given us a fantastic foundation to build upon.
It really has. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Pitch Perfect, I encourage you to explore these ideas further, experiment with these techniques, and just continue to hone your communication skills. And most importantly, remember to communicate with empathy, authenticity, and the genuine desire to connect.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into Pitch Perfect. Thanks for joining us.
It's been my pleasure.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep those conversations flowing and those connections growing.
Happy communicating.